Alrighty. Then welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the to Edessa Dark Crusade Season 2 on our new streaming service, StreamYard. Hashtag better than Twitch. Clearly. And tonight we are to set the scene with three ostentatious individuals who have received invitations from the Seneschal for their counsel in dealing with this particular hunter problem. The place you've been invited to is the construction site. It's outside of town. It rests along the river on the northwest side of the domain, outside the walls. It's closer to a town than a building, but it was meant to be the New Elysium. As you all approach, at differing times and from different directions, you can see what is clearly meant to be an estate with several surrounding buildings and what would be a courtyard, but it's all very it's all horribly incomplete. The estate is only half built. The fencing and the walls that surround the estate are still largely stacked in piles of their prerequisite materials. The courtyard has been tended to, but not a lot has been done to make it look particularly appealing. It's largely just it's just cut grass, really. It's barely distinguishable from the heathland. And the people that are meant to work here and labor for this place, well, many of them don't even live here, but the few that do, they're living in effectively prefab shelters, shacks. Funnily enough, more complete than the estate. These buildings have actually had some work put into them so that they're livable spaces, but work here appears to be very slow. The progress is negligible. And the Seneschal, along with a few other people, notably this person, and this person, are also present. The atmosphere is very formal and, like with most things Canite right now, quite grim. They're standing amongst the foundations of this estate. You can enter now.
Septimus comes in his carriage, coming from the noble section of the of Edessa, and steps out, and he seems rather uncharacteristically pensive, as it's been a while since the night where a lot of interesting things happened. and a lot of chaos ensued. But being that there is some remnants of K-Knight survivors, he seems to be somewhat relieved as he politely nods and doesn't say too much. But noticing the Zamisi in the corner, he will go and stand.
She looks at you again. She is covered in the armor of the earth, wood, stone, dirt, rock. She's even seems parts of her skin have melded with parts of the gravel that make up bits of the pathway. Because she's
Mhm.
almost like, I'm not sure if it's magnetized to her or if she actually picked it up and applied it to her like paint, but it's definitely stuck to her. Yeah, and she'll give you a respectable nod.
He'll give a respectable nod back. He won't start speaking to the other people that have arrived. He
Mm.
honestly doesn't know what to do.
And yeah, Adija and Eudaimon.
So Adija will arrive, shedding the mental block of obfuscate um, a good few yards off, probably as she steps on the foundation, so that she doesn't suddenly spook anybody by accident with her arrival, uh, just by standing next to them or whatever. Um, but she is definitely wrapped in cloth that seems to hide her face. There's a slight matted gleam to some of her weapons, at least where you would assume they might be. Um, and she just stands and looks at each person because she's still relative. Well, she's been here before, but probably not in a very long time. Very long time. But she doesn't know anybody here per se, other than who she's really saw the other evening. Um, but she stands and she kind of hooks her thumbs into her sash, and kind of just stands quietly and tacitly at a rested position.
For his part, Eudaimon is he doesn't even bother with obfuscate once he gets out of the city. Um, he just makes his way towards the appointed meeting place. Yeah, and whenever he sees the gathering of K-Knights, he will make his way forward and just sort of slide into the picture um, relatively gracefully, as a Nosferatu should. It doesn't make any pointed eye contact, though it's difficult to see with his mask anyway. And yeah.
Yeah, and it's worth noting that. Well, actually, this will only become relevant when you hear his name. But if and when Eudaimon introduces himself, he does have rep merit, so many of you would have heard of him if you haven't already.
Yeah, Adija just gives Eudaimon a knowing nod, so to speak. But yeah.
If there is a response, you do not get it.
Fair enough.
Master fun.
Good
And
evening,
so-
ladies and gentlemen.
Sorry.
All right, go ahead.
He, after a moment, and assuming that some of the elders are talking among each other, he just sort of rasps out, "What's the meaning of this?"
Good evening to you too. I've called you all here because you are seemingly all that remains of the city's more respectable populace. The rest, to my knowledge, have either fled or died, or are in the process of being killed, he says, somewhat sardonically. We are still down one Cainite, but I suppose should not be relying on anyone too closely these nights. Bluntly put, this crisis needs to be resolved, and frankly, we are the only ones capable of doing anything about it. You are also the only Cainites here who, to my knowledge, have actually upheld the silence while you've been resident here. You may note the number as quite small. First of all, I'd like to ascertain whether any of your assets have been struck at by the hunters.
Upon my arrival, I'd heard whispers of a massing of clerics in this area, arming themselves. I didn't want to take any chances. I moved my assets somewhere else. I am here alone, at least with my clan, but anything that would be of service, well, I'm afraid all I have to offer is me and my blades.
I travel lightly.
A number of my assets have not been struck at or dismembered, but what I do have to give is at everyone's disposal. Within reason.
Good. And you won't have to worry about being on the back foot any longer. Were any of you at an execution in the past week?
Yes.
I was
I
there.
hear that is where all of this fell apart. After that night, I received word from my now only remaining contact among the religious circles that the various priesthoods have begun to move. And we're openly talking about our kind in terms that are far too accurate.
Whoever has been breaking the silence has been pretty egregious, because I before I moved my assets out, I was given a list of exactly who they were targeting. Speaking of which, one of them was you, Lord Septimus. If they have not hit you yet, perhaps it might be something that you might be keen on defending against, or making arrangements to defend against.
It'll be done. Thank you for your counsel.
I'm sure being at his Misi will have many hospitable patrons to turn to. He actually looks at the other Tismisi. I wasn't at this. Oh,
No, sir.
May I ask what happened at this execution? Because that is all I hear being talked about now. Men growing horns, turning into butterflies, burning corpses.
Yeah. He just nods and says, yeah. Like,
It all started with an otherworldly gentleman. I'm assuming it was Canite. It looked like a Canite. His soul looked like a Canite. Basically outing my clanmate, Al-Qadir, to these clerics.
there's also talks of another canine by the name of Brigida that thought it would be prudent to hide amongst the dead. My only guess is that one such canine was hoping to get a quick meal from those that were hanged. But from what I remember, it was more of a spectacle when the canine that Khadija spoke of became a chimney. And, yeah, he just says.
This sounds as though it's an utterly foolish game someone was playing.
If it was a game, I yet to see the fun in it.
It certainly seemed fun for one person, anyways. Needless to say, I had to rescue my clanmate because I am honor bound to do so. And I had to strike at the cleric in order to save Al-Qadir.
Understandable.
There's something of a spectacle. I believe I can surmise that they are of either the Jewish faith or they're of the Jewish faith, as a lot of their armaments are Hebrew and written in that tongue.
To follow behind that, from what I understand, there seems to be about 150 pilgrims, and they all been equipped with relics and weapons blessed by the Grand Imam, and Alama themselves?
That would be. I would assume that would be from the Islamic contingent of this hunter group.
Which to two notable mentions that Two-Face are indeed working in conjunction to root out what is seen to be extraordinary.
I see. Gauss is actually gonna. He's gonna look at Khadija and Septimus. I'm just gonna ask, would it be possible for me to extract the memories of this execution from you? I'd very much like to know whom is responsible so they can be dealt with.
He does so. Not too much of a qualm.
Khadijah seems rather suspicious, but ultimately lowers her head in acquiescence.
Okay. Yeah, then he will do it. He will reach into your minds, kind of relive the memories. I'll say you don't need to make perception awareness rolls because he doesn't try and reach any further. It's almost like it's not the time.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you see everything he saw with way of spirit and like the oddness and the terribleness.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
All that fuckery. Yep.
Oh, you see all that fuckery.
Gars looks steadily and steadily more, how to say. I was going to say irritated, but actually quite furious.
Because it's just fuckery. There's no reason for any of this to happen.
It's just pure disgust at what is happening. There's literally nothing there. But hatred. And once he's done, he'll just sort of. He doesn't close his eyes, so he just looks away and thinks to himself. Well, a figure like that shouldn't be particularly hard to find, as bizarre as they are.
He's also Assamites are quite on to him. At least we'll be looking for him, I should say.
I can imagine. I've been in contact with one of your elders, the sorcerer Lisa. You may have heard of her. If you could deliver information regarding those events to her or of this person, we'll ensure that if the hunters don't get to this figure, we will.
I'll make sure that I speak with her upon the matter.
By all means, you may take his heart's blood, I do not care.
She just smiles below the mask, like we need your permission, but okay.
Just like you.
His debt will be paid.
As I would hope. So, back to the larger topic. These hunters, they can tell you what I know. They can tell you that they're split up into 3 groups based on their faith. I can tell you there's about 250 of them, give or take. Although they have armed a great many more people. If I recall, they've been rearming the City Watch. Weapons made from their own hands. As you said, Septimus, very much blessed to deal with our kind. Actually, no, he doesn't call you Septimus, he calls you Lord Septimus because, you've earned it. You're a good lord.
Thank you.
You don't ruin the masquerade.
Head pat.
Good
It's
boy.
okay. He will in about 300 years.
Yes, totally.
So just it's all about timing, really. They can tell you myself, the Prince, and Al-Taib were trying to combat this invasion for months. But the increasing frequency of which silence breaches occurred, and a sheer amount eventually burst that particular dam. I can also tell who's in charge, however, who's really in charge. Truth be told, it is not the official heads of state of the faith that has spurred on this inquisition, if you will.
Then who?
Recruits and cast-offs from a prior hunter group. They were holed up in a town called Erla. It was dealt with rather efficiently by the powers that were at the time. However, 2 pockets remained. They disappeared into the city. One of which was eventually discovered and destroyed. However, the rest remained and have been trying to stir up trouble ever since. They've been pushing not just the various priesthoods, the church, to begin scrutinizing our affairs, but also the people at large. Criminal organizations, City Watch, the military. One of them even controls their own criminal network. She is also the one that appears to lead the backbone that is this purge of our kind. She goes under a few aliases. But I understand one of her names to be Katara. There's also another gentleman known as the Freak. Has a contact who later joined, a Frenchman called Piers. Those three make up the most dangerous of the hunters and their nominal leaders. Of course, they're not the only ones that will need to die, and I'd not suggest any of you directly go after them. There are also more softer targets that will need to be dealt with, less toxic to our kind. But I am not aware of all of them. Now, I've lost many servants and many contacts in the process of discovering what information I already know. However, I believe this information worth communicating to the rest of you. I had very much hoped that there were some among us who came out on the better end of this purge. Eudemon, I do apologize for stereotyping somewhat, but I would require your assistance in discovering more about this hunter threat and destroying them and their assets. Personally, I believe we can actually allow the religious authorities to do as they will once they believe we're all dead. And the worst is over. We can subtly begin maneuvering those fully aware out of the reins of power. But I know that the three I just spoke of will not stop until they are dead. They know, and they know in all too certain detail.
What do you suggest, or how do you suggest we approach handling these paragons?
Indirectly. They're playing a game not all too dissimilar to what we do on a nightly basis. They have turned many mortals of the city into their pawns, one way or another. Some of them through revelation, others through simple corruption. I've already dealt with those I was aware of, that I knew. The path that I followed towards discovering these hunters, I've already burned from top to bottom. Largely their military connections. I have been quite thorough in that regard. But they possess quite a number of proxies. and many followers among the small folk. You'll need to deal with those.
If you have any by name, I would ask you for them, and I believe I can begin operating and taking them out.
This is why I've invited you to beseech your assistance. Many of my assets have unfortunately been destroyed, either because of the purge directly or because I needed to maintain the silence for myself and others connected to me, and it required me to destroy many of my own assets myself. I still have some contacts and pull, of course, but it is greatly reduced from what it once was. Currently, I am in the process of rebuilding, but that requires time, and for the first time in many centuries, that is not a luxury I possess. Or more importantly, it is not a luxury we possess. The longer this goes on,
excuse me, at the risk of sounding flippant, what purpose would we have in fighting against this tide? This is simply a game of chess in which we're playing without pawns or rooks, and they have a full board. Why would we not simply just abandon this city to its fate? If we here are the ones that can be counted on to stop us, to stop them. This is what? 7 versus how many did you say?
Many hundreds, but, well, several hundred, not many hundreds, but most are simply ranked soldiers who have not seen or heard of even the supernatural outside of what this cooperation has told them. Should they ever be discredited or killed, it's likely most of them will simply leave. The greater risk, in my opinion, is the potential for this contagion to spread. Once this city has been purged of all its Canaanites, I've seen heavy indications that those who initiated it are going to move to other cities. It is why this Kitara created for herself a criminal network, a way to discreetly move herself and others from city to city, and place to place. Personally, I do not see abandoning this domain as an invalid option. In most circumstances, frankly, I would see it as quite reasonable. In theory, it still is. It still is. However, by that point, if we allow the issue to worsen, the city as a whole may become aware that it's not something that can be resolved. Then this will become a national issue, then an international issue. Then we will be dealing with purges not only from these hunters, but from our own clans. As who would make the perfect scapegoat but those who are at ground zero?
Then it sounds as though you have much to lose. I would argue that I do not.
As I said, you are free to leave. However, if you do choose to remain, I do not beseech for your assistance, your collective aid here this evening without substantial reward. Which, as actually he's saying, you can see this woman and this man heading towards you, just walking. They're dragging someone along the ground. There's this woman. Or rather, this gentleman is dragging her along the ground. She's just walking. She is, of course, the Ventru Primogen.
Khadijah just kind of adopts her stance to kind of like envelop them in a sense. Like she just kind of turns to the side to kind of look at the oncomers. Specifically, the woman being dragged. She canite or by using Auspex?
Roll me Auspex. Anybody who wants to roll Auspex can.
Perception, empathy, right?
Yeah. You, Demon, you can roll me your manipulation contacts if you want to know who this person they're dragging along is. And to know who the gentleman who's dragging her is.
Okay.
Because you're on us. With dice roll 2, I think.
Nah, I got 2 successes.
Okay. She's a ghoul. She doesn't have much emotional state right now. She's unconscious.
Gotcha.
So her aura is quite plain.
No problem.
Which contacts would it be?
That's a good question. So, let me look up what you have for a quick moment.
All of them.
All of them. I'll say either one of the religious ones or the City Watch. It's going to be a bit real quick.
I know a thing. So, to fill the silence, Eudaimon will slip over closer to Kadia and will just sort of murmur, "So what do you make of all this?"
He's definitely right. This could definitely be ground zero for a larger problem. If we don't handle it, nobody else would be able to. It would be too large by then. And we would too be hunted by our clan. respective clans. Maybe not you, but the rest of us, perhaps. It is going to be interesting trying to sweep the rug from under these clerics. Though it does seem like the logical route in cutting out this cancer. What do you make of it?
I'm not so sure that if this body dies, the cancer goes with it. Fervor's all well and good until you have to move.
But it seems that they have been moving here for quite some time. They are seemingly moved by whatever the situation was in Aurelia? Whatever. Spite tends to move people. They're not so different from us in a sense.
So yes, Khadija, you find out that the person being dragged is a ghoul. Lord Septimus, you figure out very much the same. Eudaimon, you are aware that this person I can find her real quick. It's called Fikria. She was in a very unusual situation of performing administrative roles for the City Watch and had ties to the Islamic priesthoods as well. Her role was never really clearly defined within these circles. Rather, she simply seemed to move among them very seamlessly. It was very heavily suspected that she was a ghoul. The only question was to who. Given the magnitude of her general action, she was very much a mover and shaker in these circles. She had gotten some very important noble figures out of prison at one point and decided the outcome of a religious trial simply through her presence. So it was clear that she was a ghoul to an elder, just not who in particular. It was something Nosferatu intended to look into, but then the purges hit, and well, the Nosferatu just kind of went to ground. You know, I mean, you're also very much aware that Nosferatu are very much still in the city. They're just living in a sewer.
Guilty.
Good old Nosferatu.
He crosses his arms thoughtfully.
No, the Ventry Primogen, Andrea Ardelian, just simply stands up, simply says, "My apologies for being so late. However, I thought you could all use a gift." She just tosses the ghoul in front of the circle. This is one of Herman's former ghouls. Now Alctaibes, from what I gather. She has some very pertinent information that I think you'll may be able to make use of in regards to both the Elder himself and the hunters. She might need a few hours though. She smiles rather
Have you?
wickedly at the ghoul.
Oh, the ghoul is smiling.
No, the Primogen smiles
Oh,
wickedly at the unconscious ghoul.
okay.
Who very much, yeah, when she kind of just tosses her down, it's pretty obvious. Like one side of her face has just been beaten to shit.
Did you collect the information that she had before you pummeled her into unconsciousness?
Oh yes, I know very much where a former Brujar Primogen resides, as well as his connections to this Hunter crisis. Turns out he was actually attempting to stop it quite generously. Although he's doing very little for Sort nowadays.
Hmm.
I think he wishes to turn a crisis into an opportunity. Let all the Canaanites die and then declare, well, he'll be the only one left claiming Praxis, no? Rather than performing the sensible action of dealing with the fucking crisis.
This is who came storming in with Herman and what's the Salubri's name?
Tabris.
Tabris, yes.
You, Daemon, you definitely know this. Tabris was defeated and bloodbound by the Salubi Aranile, who you know has left the city, which means Tabris is now also off his leash. Because fun.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it seems that we're being awfully generous with information tonight. Do you think you could expel or expound on what you have found, Primogen?
Well, as for Agtaib himself, he has set himself up, funnily enough, in a church in the Christian quarter. Quite smart, really. You wouldn't expect to look for him there. He's also quite far away from the rest of the hunters, given the orientation of this city. He hasn't been taking much action from what this ghoul tells me. He rarely leaves his church, his haven, anymore. Simply feeds on people inside the church and remains. I dare say he's become a bit paranoid.
I never seen a Bruja that was such a coward.
Hence my problems with him.
And who are you, may I ask?
Isabella, Clan Bruja.
I'm assuming that you would be going to be the elder that speaks for your clan now?
Pardon, what did you say?
I'm assuming she's going to be the elder that speaks for her clan.
Yes, I will be. My clan has been dealing with failed leaders here for the past 60 years. It is time somebody stepped up.
Is it safe to assume that we can have your assistance in dealing with Altib? I can't say his name.
Oh, I have been looking to be rid of him for a long time. His status as an elder shames my entire clan.
Then I would like to work alongside you with taking care of him. Ensuring that somebody of reasonable means takes the helm, at least here for Edessa.
I'd appreciate it, although you may be better served going after the greater target. I'd say threat, but we're little more than barbarous animals anymore. I referenced the salubri.
He is, Tabris is definitely not off the list.
He's very much within the city.
Do you know where?
Eudaimon, you know that he was originally at Justinopolis Mount. He has since moved to that new hospital they've been constructing. He's also been spending an abnormal amount of time in the Christian Quarter, which sticks out to you, one, because you now know it's Alcto's resting place, and two, because they're on opposite ends of the city.
What I also happen to know is this the hospital that Memnon's trying to build?
Yep.
Eudemon says, I think I could find him.
If you do, let me know. And perhaps we can take a couple of times again.
Eudemon looks to the Seneschal and says, is your clanmate involved with him then, seeing as how Tabris is using the hospital that he's building as a place to hide?
It is more likely that he was resting with remit from the former Primogen. I believe he simply hired out Menmon to build the hospital, but not to have any real control over it as an institution. This is always a salubri project, first and foremost. But I will contact my clanmate and see what he can find out.
That would be useful.
You and he should be able to compare notes. Or if nothing else, you will have a satisfactory layout of the hospital.
Well, there you have it, he says, looking at Kadia.
So, Altabe, Tabris, these three hunters, no proxies. I'll continue to work to find out what I can about them. Septimus, I believe you're well placed among the nobility of this city, yes?
Indeed.
Then you may actually be in a position to find out more about their contacts than I. This hunter group is not possessed of noble blood or even backing in particular. The aristocracy has largely taken an ambivalent view of these purges. I believe some backroom deals have been struck to keep certain families out of the crossfire.
I believe something can be done.
Maybe the one linchpin we can target. The city at large seems to support this Inquisition, but if the ruling class do not, if they've not been able to press them as much as others, then as much as the common man, then there may yet be a domain at the end of this hunt.
Indeed.
Then there'll be many positions available for you to take at its end. So it was a great favor from myself.
He nods.
So it's safe to say that the original prince, Chimera, has abandoned. She has no plans of return. Not that that matters now, anyways, but it's something to expect if that's the case.
She's left for parts unknown, although with Niall's departure, I can only assume it was significant. The Celebri Primogen owed her a blood boon. If she bade him to follow, she's likely dealing with demons of her own. But yes, she no longer holds praxis over this domain.
Well, that's convenient.
Well, it is.
Rather inconvenient for us.
I've no doubt the timing was deliberate and in several ways.
I would be careful. All due respect, Seneschal. Because it would seem that every catastrophe that befalls this city, you've been a part of. You might be getting a reputation for being a harbinger of doom for new princes.
Perhaps I am. Ultimately, I should have taken this praxis a long time ago. Dare I say it was naive of me to think that one so young could have handled reins of power of a city so large, particularly as one so new to it. That is very much my failing. It's one I most certainly will have to answer for when Judgment Day comes, but it is not now. Which, yes, Master Eudomon is also quite convenient.
Well, don't worry. There are many nights left in this Inquisition as I stand here. And it's been proven with the late Ravnos Primogen that no one is untouchable.
No. Humans are made... Oh. Sorry, I thought I heard someone talk. It's probably just feedback again. No, Essential just says, humans were made weak by their ignorance of us. Remove that ignorance and replace it with knowledge, and you'll find that they are not so weak. It is something many elders of my age fail to adequately understand until it is too late. It happened a year ago, it happened during the Bitter Crusade. It's happening right now in Europe.
With so many shining examples, you would think we would learn by now.
I find that we live very cyclical lives. But I digress. I have several bolt holes in the city that you can use for other being hunted. They're scattered across every district. I made sure to have one for each in case a situation like this were to ever occur. I'll give you the locations. You're free to use them as you will to meet or communicate. I'd not recommend going to any of the Elysiums. They're potentially compromised, or even returning to your havens. But if there is anything you wish to do that rests just outside your reach, contact me or any one of us here. I believe we all have our respective niches. We'd be happy to assist you. The Keeper Giles is currently working on getting the watch under control and making it so that hunting will at least be available in pockets around the city. Will be possible again. Isabella, needless to say, will be handling Octabe, your elder Septimus. Well, I believe you'll know more about what she's capable of than I am. More than I do, sorry. As for you, Primogen, he just looks at Andrea. I assume you'll be doing what Ventrue will be doing best. Please deliver any information you discover to the good Master Edemon. As much as I understand, we love to compete. Not really in a position to be doing this anymore.
I'll know where to find it.
I'm sure you will. For the record, Amishdeed has remained completely silent this whole time. He has not said anything.
Good. Let's keep it that way.
Yeah. This is the one scene where he has said nothing. And he has simply listened.
Yeah, we know who the ultimate villain of this whole thing is. Moving on.
Yeah.
Oh,
Truly,
no.
the true mastermind was Amishdeed. And he just kind of walks and he's like, I am Prince now. Well, we all know who's being made Lasombra Primogen after this.
No, Irene. Oh, how sad.
This figure have turns towards you. He hasn't actually given his name or anything. He simply looks at you and looks at you all and says, "I have a stranglehold over the military of this city. Should any of you need direct intervention, call upon me. I'll take it upon myself to deal with Tabris. I'd appreciate any assistance you could give. As the good seneschal said, I'm more than happy to hand over his heart's blood if that's the price."
Would it be unreasonable to assume that you could set your army to purging the city of its commoners? That could be useful.
Edessa's standing military has been rapidly developed over the past 2 years. I think that's something I could very much help with. In fact, I believe this is quite the environment for a bit of martial law. Although I may need some support for that. Otherwise I'm going to have to perform a coup, and that would just be, well, a whole nother mess.
What kind of support do you need?
I just need support from the landed aristocracy is all.
How
We
much?
could go... Oh, pardon?
How much support?
Just some noise, enough for it to be... enough for it to be tabled. Just as long as the idea has been spoken out loud. Will be much easier to ask for forgiveness when people are actually discussing it as something meritable. I go ahead without them and... well, you'll find I'll have as burned as many bridges as the poor seneschal has. And while my bridges are not your own, I would ask if we can really afford that right now.
Always better a bridge than your corpse.
Quite right.
Well, that's awfully blunt, but yes.
Of course I'll have both.
And what's your name? She points to this gentleman.
It's funny that people have just taken to calling me Khan. So I suppose that's my name. Actually, you have military contacts, don't you, Demon?
He has all of them, apparently.
All of them.
Awesome. All of them. Yeah, in which case I'll just give these to you for free because it's actually very obvious. This Khan is known as immortal. He's a massive power player in the military sphere. He basically he effectively runs the city military. He's not the only military commander in the city, but he has certainly made himself the most important. He's very powerful and he's very capable. He's also, I didn't really describe him to you, but he does have huge size. This guy's a hulking brute of a man. And,
I'll take him at his word.
I'll see if I can help the keeper as well in dealing with the more open nature of the patrols. Now that this hunter group, organization, cooperative, whatever it is, now that its military contacts have been dealt with, I might actually be able to start being more, well, being as direct as I like to be. Find me if you need some muscle. But I'm going to return to the domain now. God knows what those idiots have been getting up to while I've been gone. You're free to guess it. By the way, he out of character. You're free to guess who he actually refers to by idiots.
Oh,
Probably just most people in the city. He protects it. He doesn't have to like it.
Thanks, Dad.
Well, I suppose then that just leaves the three of us. And he gestures between Kadia, himself, and the Bruja Primogen to do the wet work. Unless Lord Septimus would like to join us, of course.
be at your disposal.
As am I.
Oh, I thought he already left.
Oh yeah, no, he's making leave. He hasn't actually left. He's just saying he should get back to the domain. He
Four
hasn't
of us
actually
then,
left.
including him.
Names, people, places. I think between all of us, we have the power. It's just a matter of information.
The Bruja Primogen, Tabris, these three hunters, their lieutenants. Hopefully, Christ Jesus himself does not decide to come down and toss his lot with the hunters.
Well, I hear if you go close enough to Abraham's fountain.
That's why I haven't ruled it out.
As far as those targets go, I think Tabris would be the first one that we should work on as far as those with the muscle.
Well, I think we can all stop presenting such a juicy target and go about our separate ways. He says to the collected aggregate of all these Canaanites in a Elysium location.
I could probably envelop us all, probably. But anyways, yeah.
And I think we'll have a rough idea of what we're doing. And yeah, the Seneschal just go. Yes, I believe we do. If that's all.
Well, I didn't come here planning to be the savior of the city, but such is our lot.
It has its perks.
Well, it wouldn't be the first time for you, would it?
I should rephrase that. It will have its perks. I feel that the prior princes have not appropriately awarded those who have given them due service. But yes, I believe Khan is correct. However, we should be getting back to the domain to see to our various spheres for the hunters.
Shackles in some cases.
Yes. So, I shall bid you all adieu, as the Frenchmen say.
Udamon just sort of backs away and turns and heads back.
The Sombra Seneschal vanishes. Brigitte begins to walk away. She's had like a horse that's kind of like a couple hundred yards out from this conversation. She goes walking towards that. Ventry Primogen begins walking away with his Khan figure. It should be noted, when the Seneschal disappears, this ghoul disappears with him. This is Misi Elder. I'll simply say to Septimus,
Mm-hmm.
you know where to find me if you need to see me.
Indeed.
And she sinks into the earth, not too unlike Protean. Garl simply begins walking away. He simply nods at the group. And Omar Shadid will go to speak as he is rudely cut off as the scene ends.
And with that, I think everybody's good.
Yeah. Thank you, players playing. Thank you for watching. We'll see you all next time. No words.